Beaming down to your local comic book store, here's your look at the Diamond Select Star Trek Captain Kirk action figure. When the USS Enterprise crew is called back home, they find an unstoppable force of terror within their own organization has detonated the fleet and everything it stands for, leaving our world in a state of crisis. With a personal score to settle, Captain Kirk leads a manhunt to a war-zone world to capture a one-man weapon of mass destruction. As our special heroes are propelled into an epic chess game of life and death, love will be challenged, friendships will be torn apart, and sacrifices must be made for the only family Kirk has left, his crew. The select action figure of Captain James T. Kirk is based on his appearance in the movie Star Trek Into Darkness and features approximately 22 points of articulation. It includes multiple accessories and energy effects as well as diorama base. The figure was designed and sculpted by Gentle Giant Studios. To start off this review, the first thing we're going to do is measure off the Dear Captain, and taking it right to the very top of Chris Pine's head, and stopping it right there. According to this tape measure, the figure stands 6.8 inches in height. Not bad. Switching that to centimeters, though, because I know there are people out there that follow their measurements in centimeters. Here in Canada, we are one of those individuals. 17.2 centimeters tall is Captain James T. Kirk. For the accessories, the first thing we'll have a look at is the transporter pad that serves also as a display stand for the figure. What's nice is that they've added this very subtle, I guess it's not entirely subtle, this brushing of lighter color on the side. It kind of gives me just the look of it reminds me that the transporter pad is already being activated and Captain Kirk is being beamed down to whatever planet or ship their adventure is taking them. I really like that. Just that subtle little edging there. It's not so much on the top. It's most definitely, though, located on the side. We're also going to be having a look at Spock, which so happens to also be from the exact same line from Diamond Select. And I can't imagine why I'm sure they would have attached these or made them in the sense that you could attach them together. So I think when we do have a look at Spock, I'm going to entertain the idea of putting the two stands together because I'm sure there's a curvature there for reasoning, and then you could probably attach the two stands together. They obviously wouldn't attach to anything by like a peg or anything like that, but I would imagine the shape would lend itself to the idea of connecting several of these together. I guess if you really had enough of them, you could make the full ring in which all the pads are actually located on top of. Now, the thing about the stand is there is no peg whatsoever for the figure. If you look at the underside of the figure, he does have peg holes on the undersides of his feet. I mean, I don't have necessarily problems with Kirk standing, but maybe a display stand peg would have also come in handy as well, just, so the figure can stand upright. We'll move that to the side. Then he'll have a whole bunch of the cool Star Trek tech. Trek tech is the best way to describe it. The first thing he comes included with is the tricorder from the actual film. The thing about all the tech seems like they've kept very much the same sort of color scheme. When you look at the other thing he comes included with, for example, the communicator, they share very similar simplistic designs and colors to them. The communicator right here does not have a flip open option. I did look at also Spock's, and Spock's doesn't have any variation to this. It would be nice actually if one of the future figures from Diamond Select, if they're still sticking to the Abrams Trek verse, I'd love to see them also do an open communicator. They've done this a lot with the Diamond Select Ghostbusters line too, where figures will have similar gear, but it will be variations. For example, the Ghost Traps have had open and closed functions. The PKE meter has had different antenna directions on it. So maybe future figures may come with an open version of the communicator. I certainly would love to see that. We'll put those to the side. And then you get to the more heavy assault weapons, and that is the various different phasers. Now these things are really neat because they are based from the film. We'll look at this one. Actually, we'll look at this one here first. This is the phaser rifle, or Type C rifle, that has made several appearances throughout the films. This is done in silver, and my guess is the silver has been painted on and not molded in silver plastic. That probably would be quite the feat to see. It's got a nice little bit of glitter to it, like it's got a bit of a metallic sheen as well. And the undercarriage of the phaser rifle also does have a little bit of black banding, similar to the smaller type phaser, the hand phasers that we'll look at in a second. There's a little bit of black banding there as well, and also the actual trigger, or I guess the front of the phaser trigger, would actually have a little bit of black there as well. He does come with a hand suited for holding this. I'll show you that also in a second as well. Then he has the larger version. This is the tactical phaser, or Type A phaser. One thing that's neat about this, and one thing I really first of all like, is the shape of it. It kind of looks something like you would see as a ship. This looks like a ship that would be flying in space. It's a larger version of the smaller hand phaser, which is also so happens to be something that he comes included with as well. This is the hand phaser, or the Type C phaser. And the neat thing about it, though, is, and I don't recall if it was actually in the film, but the neat thing is that the Type A tactical phaser actually did have a removable section down below. It was, in fact, this down below that attached, if you could believe it, right there. You can almost even just line it up exactly. It's similar also to the original classic Trek, in which you remember the portable phasers were located at the top of the hand phasers, and they could simply just take those off. Well, the same thing sort of applies for the hand phaser. The Type B phaser would just be a detachable option. If I could just overlay it like that, they would be able to remove it from the larger tactical phaser. And then this would be closed up. I don't know if they would actually still use it the way it is, obviously, once you've removed it out, or if now you've just got this extra kind of, actual larger compartment. I guess that would just be sitting somewhere. I don't know if you could still use it or not, or if the phaser would just come out. I guess you would still find some means to probably hold it like this and still use it as a phaser rifle. So he does have a couple of cool little gadgets there. I think Spock has this one as well. And then he also has a variation to the phaser rifle also. So we'll have a look at all of those goodies. I don't want to really kind of tip my hand well in advance, but we'll have a look at all those goodies when we have a look at Spock in the future video review. The thing that these also do come included with is phaser blast effects. Admittingly so, I don't know how successful these are pulled off. They're done in translucent plastic, a yellow plastic, and a red plastic, respectively, depending on the settings of the phaser, whether it be stun or kill. And they are of various sizes. They are of also various slots, too. You can see that one has a slightly smaller, almost keyhole-shaped slot, and one has a little bit larger of a slot. I know I said slot a whole lot of times so far. These ones here can be attached fairly easy, although to be fair, they don't stay well in place. Just go ahead and grab that. There we go. Couldn't even hold on to it. That just attaches into place. As I said, though, it doesn't stay in place. There we go, dropping it again. There we go. This one is, it's specifically like this shape that I feel doesn't lend well to attaching this. And as quickly as you seem to get that in place and you feel like it's staying in place, it does drop off. Now this size also, in theory, could work with the smaller hand phaser. And it's just more of a case of wedging in place. It does look a little ridiculous, I have to admit. Such a large blast effect, phase effect coming out from such a small weapon. And then again, you can fit that into this phaser as well. So I mean, they are okay. This one here is the best suited for the hand phaser. The problem though with them, I find, is that they are way too big. We'll just attach that one in so you guys can see what it looks like. I find it's way too big up here, and it's most definitely very bulbous coming out from the phaser. Kind of wish that these could have been smaller, thinner, and maybe while still made of the denser plastic, so you wouldn't have to something you have to worry about with it being breaking pieces to the sides of it. But I do find like that looks a little bit, I don't feel it really works well. I mean, I'm perfectly fine just leaving these off altogether and displaying the figure completely without. And I appreciate the fact that Diamond Select would include these, but I don't feel like they're the most successful looking blast effects. I've certainly seen better ones. To, by the way, display the figure with any one of the weapons we've just discussed, the hand phasers work fairly well. Just plugging those into place like that. There we go. And you can also take the communicator, which is probably what I'm going to end up displaying him with. In fact, I even started this review with Captain Kirk holding the communicator and the phaser in the other hand. He does come with a couple of other versions of those hands, though. One's maybe better suited for holding the hand phaser, for example. As you can see, this one here does have more of a trigger finger, suited, I think, better for something like this. When it comes to the larger one, well, the larger one, you can still accommodate it, but it involves you kind of having to pry the fingers around, like so. And you have to kind of pry the handle section in. This is something that does take a little bit of time to pry open, and then just to fit the handle section in like so. And then you can get the thumb around it just like that. The thing about it, though, is it doesn't stay in his hand very well. And I almost even feel like a better suited hand might be this one right here, which so happens to be then on the opposite hand. Again, you just pry those fingers open, fit the thumb, and fit the 4 fingers in. Let me just put the figure down here for a second. I'm trying to balance 2 things at once. And again, just pry that in like so. And as you can see, this hand suits it a little bit better. It will involve, though, putting it on this side, because obviously thumbsies go in. It'd make no sense putting it over there. So there are the weapons and the various different Starfleet equipment that comes included with the figure. Overall, very happy with the stuff that they included. Although, again, marginally, I think that the phase effect, I don't think is as successful. I think they could have probably shrunk that down, thinned it out a little bit, just because it does, again, look a little bit too bulbous. And I find in some cases they don't stay well in place. So having a look at the figure itself, I'm very happy with how this one turned out. It's really that Star Trek, as the Enterprise has been stuck in spatial limbo a couple of times itself, it seems almost even like the franchise is sort of stuck in limbo. We get teased periodically that Quentin Tarantino is planning to do another Trek film. Not him being the one doing another Trek film, but another Trek film helmed by Quentin Tarantino. I think that would certainly be a different take, and I'm sure he would bring something different to the table. But in the meantime, we don't really know what's going on with future Trek films. Now, this Captain Kirk is based on the way he looks in Into Darkness. But I mean, really, you could pull him out and plant him in any one of the other Star Trek films, as he's wearing his trademark Starfleet uniform. This, of course, does change a little bit, tweaking a little bit, like the Enterprise gets tweaked a little bit over the various different films, the 3 in total that they have released. If you look really closely, you can see the Starfleet symbols making their way through the entire suit, at least the yellow tunic portion of it. Gets a little more faded there on the sleeves, but most definitely it's quite present there, as you can see, on the main torso section of the uniform there. He's got, of course, the silver Starfleet Academy, a Starfleet symbol there as well. And, of course, we have to look at his face. Overall, pretty happy with the rendition that they've done for this Captain Kirk. I think it looks a fair bit like Christopher Pine, and I think it does do a pretty good job of capturing the likeness of Captain Kirk. Quickly, I'll bring in the packaging. I don't normally do the packaging in this part of this review, but I just want to bring this up and I just want to show what I feel the difference between the 2 face portraits are. Based on what this look is, I don't think it's as good of a likeness of Chris Pine as this one right here. I don't know if they've gone back and changed necessary or made necessary changes between the figures, but there's definitely a clear-cut difference between the artwork that we got on the back of the packaging and what we ultimately got in the figure. Just to note as well, he's got quite the longer neck on the packaged artwork figure versus what we got in the original. So I don't know what they ended up doing, whether they went back to the drawing board and reevaluated whether that was a good head sculpt or not, but I'm happy that they landed on this head sculpt. This is something that physically in hand looks so much better than some of the images that we saw online. The shading and the coloring of his skin tone, I think, is on par with the way it is in the film. He's a slightly darker, not a fair-skinned captain, but he's got a little bit of a slightly darker tone to him, and I think that translates well in the figure. He's got the crystal blue eyes. You can see also that they painted in there the little reflection of light. You can almost make it out. There it is right there. A little reflection of, a little bead of white pearl right on his his iris there. You can see a little bit of that reflection of light. Nicely done there. Of course, the eyebrows a little fuller on this captain. He's got the Captain Kirk, not quite the same similar Captain Kirk sideburns, because I don't feel like anyone could pull off the Shatner's sideburns any bit better than Bill Shatner could in the original series. Maybe one of these days we may get ourselves a future Star Trek film where Christopher Pine is sporting those fantastic Shatner sideburns. Head sculpt and hair sculpt is quite good as well, giving a little bit of a frosting on the edging of the hair, so it gives you a little bit of an idea of a slightly blonder Captain Kirk, but still, he's still a darker brunette Captain Kirk. We move our way further down. Of course, he's got the ranking there banded on his sleeves. Two of his hands out of the various 4 hands, I think it was 4 hands that he could swap out to in a total, of course, on either side. And then he's also got his pants. Now, things about the series is that the original classic series, these would just been straight out black pants. As it is with movies, they always feel the need to add additional texturings and different fabric types. So even like his pants, they're not completely black slacks. You can see like there's a little bit of this, it's not quite banding, but it's definitely a different type of material right around the areas of his knees. Maybe get down to the trademark calf-high boots. These ones are buckled up at the top. I did notice, though, specifically that the boots, the foot section of the boot, is marginally different than the actual top part of the boot. Here, it's more of a matte color, while the top of the boot is more of a shinier black. I'm not sure why those aren't the same colors. I feel like this should have been also down there as well. There's the undersole of Captain Kirk's feet. And as I've already mentioned, he's got peg holes on the undersides of his feet, even though technically the display stand doesn't include the option to peg into that foot hole. So let's have a look at the guy's articulation. Sorry, Captain Kirk's articulation. His head rotates all the way around. It hinges up and down, and it rocks back and forth. The arms hinge outward to about there. There we go. And you can also rotate the arms all the way around. Swivel at the bicep. He has a single hinge in the elbow, and then he also has rotation in the hand, which hinges back and forth. I like that they still kept to putting articulation in the upper torso of these figures. Breaking up texturing can be easier to accomplish with a tunic like this because, I mean, it's really the same coloring all across the board, even though you can see that they've brushed over the yellow over top of a darker color. Normally, this would be a point that I would mention, and I guess I am in theory mentioning right now, but I guess the way that the light hits it, it looks like it has lighter tones and darker tones. So I'm actually pretty happy that they did do that, as opposed to just slapping on one consistent yellow across the surface. I kind of like that there's, like I said, the lighter tones, there's the darker tones, and I think they come together well. But he does have the upper torso ball joint. You don't have to worry at all. Like I said, if you want to pose the figure slightly thrown back as the Enterprise bridge is being tussled about as the crew is trying to run towards get their controls. Like I said, you do have the ball joint in the upper torso. Does not seem to have a waist swivel. If he does, I can't seem to manipulate it. I feel as if it's been molded. It does look like there should be a cut where that would swivel, but if they had abandoned ship on the idea of putting a swivel cut there, I'm fine for the fact that they still have the ball joint up the top. That's more than enough for me. The legs hinge forward, and most definitely they hinge back to only about that point, sadly. Kind of the square butt of Chris Pine. I don't know if he has a square butt in person. It's not a question I would be willing to pose to him. But the leg doesn't go any bit further past that point. The legs hinge out quite a bit, actually. Kind of has the old vintage style of peg hinge joints. I guess they could probably go the route down the road of using ball joints, but I think for a pant-wearing outfit like this, a character that wears pants like this, I think it works still fine. Yes, you're going to see a big cut when you move the legs out, but why would you ever display Captain Kirk doing this? I certainly would not be. That would be ridiculous. He has a swivel on the half cut, almost 3 cut of the thigh, or 3rd cut of the thigh. He has a double hinge on the knee, swivel at the, not quite the boot. This is kind of the same thing as I was thinking up here. Feel like that should have been a hinge joint, a swivel joint, but he does still have articulation in the feet. An ankle pivot, an ankle rocker, and the feet also hinge up and down. So for all the necessaries for at least articulation, Captain Kirk can check off all of those boxes. I don't think there's anything that the figure doesn't possess in the way of posability. I think the figure has about 22, if memory serves me correctly, 22 points of articulation. For again, any mission that Captain Kirk is beaming down to, along with the crew of the Enterprise, I think that's enough articulation to pull off a rather successful, posable Captain Kirk. Now, I couldn't use the tagline "going where no one has gone before" to describe this figure. Other companies have handled the Star Trek franchise, and some missions have been a little bit more successful than others. I couldn't easily have used that tagline to describe Diamond Select either, because this isn't their first rodeo, their first Star Trek mission. They have done countless different figures in the past, and of course, most notably is the various different Star Trek replicas and ships that I've been personal fans of. So this is the first time that Diamond Select have approached the Star Trek property, although I will admit this is a rather successful mission, releasing Chris Pine as Captain Kirk from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek universe. This figure really does capture the likeness, for me at least, of Chris Pine, and I think the look of it captures exactly what I would want from a Captain Kirk figure. He has all the necessary accessories, all the necessary weapons to pull off an epic pose, even though probably you could get a little bit more of an epic pose than what I've done here in Final Looks. I've just simply got him displayed with the hand phaser in hand. I guess that's really how I picture Captain Kirk. He's not a science explorer. He's one that goes in and gets the job done. The one thing I don't think got the job done, in all honesty, is the phase effect. That blast effect that's supposed to attach to the end of the phase rifle and the hand phaser, I think just looks a little bit too cumbersome and bulky than what I would actually want to display the figure with. I'm sure they could have probably slimmed that down, and in favor, actually, of even just getting rid of the burst effect, even if they had just found the means to add just a beam of plastic. Fragile, yes, I know that would jeopardize a mission of displaying the figure with such a thing, but I think that would have been a little bit more successful than that starburst effect that they ended up giving with it. Again, I don't think it works well with the figure. If you manage to pick up this figure for yourself, though, most definitely let me know in the comments section down below what you guys think of the new Diamond Select Star Trek Captain Kirk from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek films. And like I said, I did sort of already give it away, but we're of course going to have a look at Spock in probably the next review. So if Star Trek is your thing and Diamond Select is your thing, it's certainly most definitely my thing, then stay tuned to this channel because the review of Spock will be right around the corner. Also as well, guys, if you are new to this channel, or say you're a long-time viewer, you've been on board the Enterprise with this captain for the longest of times, self-proclaimed captain, of course. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and why not swing on over to the holodeck? Oh, right, yeah, we don't have that in this universe. Make sure you hit that bell notification as well, ding-a-ling-a-ling, so that when future videos, like more future Star Trek reviews coming onto this channel, you'll never miss out. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.